Hi, everybody. I'm back again. My name is Mary Hunt. I'm an artist. I am also an art instructor, and I'm coming to you today from West Nebraska Art Center, which is in Scottsbluff. And hopefully you'll come see us someday. It's a pretty cool place, lots of artwork. Today we are going to talk about a little bit more color theory. This time we're going to talk about complementary colors. So what you're going to need, and we will be sending you some of this. You'll be needing a color wheel. This one has the value relationship too, which is nice. And then here's a value scale, just because we're going to talk a little bit about value too. You will also need, we're going to go kind of work off this kind of an abstract leaf or feathery pattern. I think it's leaves maybe. But we're going to do something a little bit different with that. You will also need some heavyweight paper. This could be multimedia kind of paper, lightweight watercolor paper, which is what this is. You could even use like a construction paper if it's a little bit on the heavy side, or drawing paper that's a little bit heavier. We also will be sending you a pattern for this. You will need pencils, and probably 2 may not be enough. Make sure they're sharpened. You're going to probably need 3 or 4 of those. You'll also need a paintbrush. You don't need 2, just one of these, but I'm giving you a couple of possibilities. These are both round brushes and both come to a really nice point there at the end, and that's what you're looking for. You might need an eraser, but probably shouldn't need that. But if it makes you feel better, you can have it on hand. You'll need some tape. I like to use this blue painter's tape because it lifts off easily and does not tear the paper. You'll need a paper towel. You will also need, obviously, paint. Today we're using tempera paint, and we're using the primary colors plus white, which are red, yellow, blue, and white. These are not just any red, yellow, and blue. They're specific shades of those colors because they mix well together. So you always want to make sure if you're ordering them, you get, it actually says primary blue, primary yellow, primary red. There are some other possibilities, but we won't go into that today because that might get to be a little confusing. You're also going to need some water. I have already used this for some other colors, which is why it's kind of a yellowish color. And I think we're good. Oh, one more thing. We're going to need a palette. In this case, this is one I've already used, but we have little sections in it. It's a styrofoam plate that just has little sections, which is nice if you want to keep your colors separate. It's not necessary to have the little sections, though. You can use just a plain round styrofoam plate, but make sure it's a non-absorbent. Paper plates don't work real well because they absorb all the moisture and then you're left with dry paint. So make sure you get something that's non-absorbent. You could use a large plastic lid of like an ice cream bucket or something like that, would work just fine. So what we need to do before we start to paint is get our drawing prepped. So we have this pattern and we need to transfer it onto this paper. If you look on the back side, this is what you're going to need your pencils for. If you look on the back side, I have already filled this in with pencil mark. And that's what you're going to need to do. You can see I'm kind of holding my pencil sideways like this. That way you're getting the broadest part of the lead, the pencil lead on there, and it fills in better and faster. You want to make sure that you don't have any white spaces. I know that may look a little bit like there's white spaces here, but it's just lighter shades of the graphite from the pencil. And then you want to take your watercolor paper or whatever color whatever kind of paper you're using. Put your pattern on there. You don't have to use this particular pattern, but find something that has layers to it. Like this has layers, like this leaf is behind these leaves. This one's behind this one. This one's behind these two, that kind of thing. So it's kind of layered because then you get the full effect of this. So what you want to do then is just draw your design on there. And you're just going to follow the lines that are on here with your pencil and press kind of hard so that it goes down on it. Now, I've already done the drawing part of it to just kind of speed things up a little bit, but you can see, I know it's probably pretty light and hard to see, but you can see the lines that are on here. And that's kind of what you're going to go by. So I've already got that ready to go, so I'm going to pull that off. And you can see how easy that was because the tape does not stick and it doesn't tear the paper. So then we'll get our water ready, get our brushes here, get our paint. So what I'm going to start out with is we were going to talk about complementary colors. We'll go back to our color wheel. And you can pick any color on this wheel. And I'm just going to pick, I think I want to do blue. So that's blue right here. This is green blue. This is purple blue or violet probably. Well, this would be violet. This would be blue violet. So we're going with blue. So the color directly across from it is orange on this color wheel. Colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. So that's how you find the complement of one color. Now, this is where it kind of is handy that you have white too, because you can mix in order to make, for example, if you want this orange, but you want a darker version of that orange, all you have to do is add a tiny bit of this blue to it, and it will make it darker. You can get lots of different shades of that orange just by adding varying amounts of blue. You can also then add white to any of those and lighten them up that way too. So that's what we're going to do today. And I want you to notice that on this value scale here of lights and darks, and that's what values mean. In this case, values are not whether you're doing something right or wrong. It's more about light and dark in art. So if you find your blue again and go across to your value scale, it's kind of in the dark end of the value scale. It's just before you get into the real darks. So it would probably be considered a medium tone. Orange is also, or a mid-tone. Orange is also more of a mid-tone, but you can see it's a much lighter mid-tone than the blue is. So that kind of makes sense as you're painting when you're wanting to do lights and shadows, because when you're doing your painting, you don't want everything to be really, really dark and really, really light. You want to, most of your paintings, if you look at just about any painting that a famous artist has painted, you're going to see lots and lots of colors in this range, in the mid-tone range, And those paintings will have a very small amount of darks, super darks, and a very small amount of lights. So next time you look at a painting, take a look and see if I'm right about that, because you're going to find lots and lots of midtones. So that's what we're going to work with today. We'll also, if you look at this value chart, you can kind of get an idea, like this would be the orange. Now, in this case, black was mixed with orange, not the blue. So it's going to be different. You're going to get different colors. And I'll show you that too as we go along, as we mix some of the colors. By adding complementary colors, you're going to find different colors than you would if you just add black. And that's where color gets really fun, as far as I'm concerned, because you can do so many things and you get so many different interesting colors. But again, lights and darks, they're really important, but you're going to have this mid-tone range is what you're really looking at mostly in your paintings. So getting back to this one, we are going to start. I've already mixed up some orange here, but I might need more, so I think I'm going to just add a little bit more in there. Because in this case, to mix the orange, we have to use two of the primary colors, which are red and yellow. The blue is already blue, so we don't need to do anything with that, at least not at this stage. So I'm going to take more of my yellow and put it in here because I want to have plenty of orange to work with. I've already got some red in there, but I'll probably need a little bit more red and mix up a nice middle tone orange. I don't want it to be red orange. I don't want it to be yellow orange. I want it to just to be a nice middle tone orange, but it looks like I'm going to mix up just a little bit more because I want to make sure I've got plenty of it. And that's probably what you want to do too. Be careful not to mix up too much red in there because it can, that yellow is very light. And that's why you always want to work with your light colors first and add your darks to it. So you just put some of the red next to here and then add it gradually. Because you probably aren't going to need that whole thing. And I think I've got what I want right about there. And then I'm going to rinse my brush. Since I'm changing colors completely, I'm going to rinse my brush out. And then I'm going to dry it some on my, get the excess water out so your brush is not dripping with water. Because if you don't do this step, your paints are going to get real runny. Then I'm also going to take some of the blue. And there again, I want plenty of it. It's just blue at this point, but I'm going to show you that in a minute, we're going to mix some of those colors. Just to show you what happens with blue and orange. Remember what color this water was? Of course, it happens when I added blue to it. Looks kind of green, doesn't it? So we're going to have a lot of colors to work with here. We'll start by mixing, we'll take some of the orange and put it here. And okay, going back to our drawing, this is a partial painting that I did for the analogous colors. But what I wanted to show you is what I'm going to do is the most distant ones, distant leaves, I'm going to make in darker colors and then kind of gradually build lighter and lighter. But instead of using analogous colors, I'm going to use complementary colors. So I want to take some of this blue and add it to the orange, but I'm just adding a little bit. So can you see what's happening to that orange? It's not really orange anymore. Now, it could also take some of the blue and add orange to it, and look what happens to that. We'll get more of a green color. So what I want to do is in the background, I'm going to use more of these two colors. And then as I work my way forward, I'm going to use more of these colors. So I'm going to go around. I may end up covering up my drawing, but I kind of know what it looks like. So I think I can fill in. Another thing that you want to keep in mind, did you notice how I'm doing the brush strokes kind of in the direction that the leaf part would be? You can outline it, but then go in the direction that a leaf would be and see what that does. It already makes it look like a leaf. And getting into these little corners is why it's really nice to have a brush with a nice tip on it. Nice sharp tip. I'm going to add just a little touch of water to that. Because my paint is dry, temper dries pretty fast, so you might have to do that every now and then. Just take a tiny little bit of water. I'm also going to paint this leaf, since it's also really more in the background. I'm going to do the same thing with that and paint it that darker shade of green. Then on my next one, which is going to be this one here. I don't know how well you can see that outline is a little dark or a little light down there. You can't see it real well. But I'm going to take more of the orange and mix it in here. So you get kind of a more of an olive tone on the green. I think I'm going to also at this stage add just a little bit of white, because I want to lighten that up a little bit, but I don't want it to make it too light. So here's our leaf. And I'll just fill that whole thing in there. A tiny bit of water there. And just fill the rest of that in. I think we'll also do this one in that same color, because it's in front of this one, but it's behind this one. So it needs to be kind of a color that's more in the mid-tones. And that one is not, I didn't draw a complete leaf, so I'm not going to worry about exactly where that ends. Oh, and I just realized I probably needed to do something with that. Now, since this one's still back in the back, behind this one and this one, we're going to need to do something with that and make it less light than this one. So I'm going to go mix some orange and some of the blue, and I'm going to make, I need to have a color that's in between these two colors. So it looks like I'm running out of paint already. So I'm going to need to add some more to that. But I think I might have enough here now, but remember I added white to this one, so I'm gonna add a little bit of white to that one, but maybe not quite as much. Just to lighten it up a little bit. And we'll see how this looks. So you still have the kind of olive tone green, but it's a darker olive tone than this one is. And it looks like we're going to end up covering up most of them. And these paints are a little bit darker, so we'll end up covering a lot of the drawing on the darker leaves. You can still see some of that through these, I think. Now for the last one, since that one's the closest to us, we're just going to put barely any green in that. We'll go back to our orange here. And it's going to end up being a little bit more on the orange side, but we're going to add a little bit of white to it. So remember, this is more of an abstract kind of thing, so the colors don't actually have to look like leaves. Not at all. Which is kind of what makes it fun, because then you can use whatever colors you want, as long as they're complementary. So you can start to see, I think, how you can push some of the colors into the background just by making them darker. And you bring other colors into the foreground by making them lighter values. So we're really, in this project, we're combining complementary colors and values. So there's your base coat, basically. Now you can go back on each one of these. And since this one is the farthest back, I'm just going to take some plain blue and I'm going to start putting in some of the details. Because what I want to do is I want to keep the values of this leaf darker. And make sure that stays in the background. Because if you start adding a lot of lighter highlights or better color to use for this. Doesn't make it super dark, but it's dark enough to make it different. Wide band there and a little narrower band. This one's a little more subtle. There's less contrast between the two colors. But what you can do there, you know, as you paint, you may think of ways that you can do this. Because as I'm painting, I'm thinking that I could just take some white and add in here. And I think it'll make it kind of interesting. Brush that out just a bit, tone it down just a little bit. But I like what's going on there. So that's kind of, I think that gives you the idea of what complementary colors can do, at least a beginning. There's so much more that you can do. So just play around with these different colors and see. The one thing that you will probably be the hardest thing to adjust to is adding too much color of the complement to another color at a time. So you want to take very small amounts of paint, especially if you're adding a dark color to a light color. So just play around with it a little bit and just do some little color swatches on your paper. If you want to just have a sample paper first and just do some color swatches on it before you start actually doing your painting. That's a good idea because this one gets a little more complicated than just the analogous colors. Because there are so many, when you start adding complements, there are so many different possibilities and it's just limitless. So hopefully you'll get a chance to do a little experimentation and enjoy the project. And before I go, I would just want to say thank you to our sponsors, Nebraska Arts Council, Nebraska Cultural Endowment, National Endowment for the Arts, and Scottsbluff Public Schools. So have fun painting. Don't give up. This might get a little frustrating, but try again. You'll get it and have fun. And that's the biggest thing is have fun with it and enjoy mixing all the different colors you can get. And we will see you on the next project.